I Love Mortgage Brokering, episode 29.
If you're prepared to take your mortgage business to the next level, there is only one place to go. I Love Mortgage Brokering with your host, Scott Peckford.
Hi, Broker Nation. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today. Geoff Willis is the managing partner of Origin Mortgages. He's been a broker for 15 years based out of Vancouver, BC. He's also the co-creator of an auto and operating system built by mortgage brokers for mortgage brokers. I am absolutely stoked for this interview today. Geoff, are you ready to rock?
I am ready to rock, Scott.
Awesome. So can you just tell me a little bit, we always like to start, but just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm not sure what you'd like to know. You mentioned 15 years as a broker. I've been in the mortgage origination business since 89, so 25 years. So this is my second tour in brokerage. I was one from 89 to 95 in the very early pioneer days within Mortgage Center, with a company called Mortgage Finders, and then ended up doing some work with Canada Trust when they started their sales force, and then became TD Canada Trust. So never worked in a branch, never been in the bank as an employee, but I've always been on the mortgage origination side. So I spent 10 years on that side and 15 years now on the brokerage side. So a chance to learn a little bit about the inner workings of those partners we call banks in terms of, and I think that's kind of served me well in terms of how we've approached this second time around with Origin.
Mm-hmm. And so...
You want to know about personal life? Is that what you were asking?
Both.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about your personal life too.
Sure. I've been married to my wife Alice for 26 years. We have 3 kids, 22, 20, and 18. Live in Vancouver over by the University of BC. Born and raised in BC. Grew up in New Westminster and spent a couple of years in Toronto when I was working with TD Canada Trust. So I had the benefit of living in another part of the country and seeing how other marketplaces operate, and decided in 2003 to move back to Vancouver and have made, as I said, the West Side my home since that time, and brought our kids up there. So it's been a good run. Been a good life.
Have any of your kids
so far?
Any of your kids want to be in the mortgage business?
It's probably premature. Certainly, my daughter won't be. She's the oldest. She's going to be in education and does behavioral therapy with autistic kids. So she's kind of got her path. The 2 boys, I'm not sure. Interestingly enough, over many years of hands-free cell phones, they could probably figure out how to pre-qualify somebody just by having sat beside me in the car. So they know a little bit about the business going in, but I don't know that they necessarily think that it's something they want to do yet.
Right. And then, so what made you kind of worked within the bank the system, and then what made you make the transition to brokering like 15 years ago?
Okay, so I was in the banking system from 95 to 2005, and in that particular run, that was probably the best time because effectively when I went over to Canada Trust, having been a broker for 95, that was when discounting began to happen, believe it or not. Things began to move off posted rates, and we had things called relationship pricing, and banks became more competitive, and they were also our suppliers of business. And in those days, as a broker, your only real universal bank that you could deal with was TD. So the rest were kind of like the monolines, and it was very limited as to what you could sell. So I went over in that direction, just felt that was the way the future was going to go, and also built something and felt the need to be involved in building something from scratch. So I was there for the best times. I think that particular sales culture's had an arc, and I think it's on the downswing. I don't think mortgage specialists working for one bank is very workable going forward. It's like selling, if you're a realtor, it's kind of analogous to trying to sell a vendor on an exclusive listing in an MLS world. It's just tough to sell, right? People just don't want that. They want choice, and they want you to be unbiased in your ability to offer them choice. So
right.
That's what attracted me back into the brokerage community. And having been on both sides, I felt that there was a lot of downloading of administrative tasks to mortgage originators, resetting of rates, having to do deal record sheets to get paid, constantly having to check other people's tick sheets and websites and stuff that just really slowed you down and being productive by focusing on your client experience. So before we even opened our doors at Origin, we said we're going to develop a database, and we're going to have professional administrators that work for us that can assist salespeople in doing those functions and doing them better than what salespeople do. So we can all make a better living and also create a better client experience for the people we interact with.
Cool. And yeah, your programs that you guys have built, Auto, is pretty awesome. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we go there, I always like to start with a success quote. I find quotes are a great way to distill an idea, make it portable. You can take it with you. So can you share a quote that's really impacted your life or business?
Yeah. It's not from a business guy. It's from a well-known comedian actor by the name of Woody Allen. And it's basically 80% of success is showing up. I really believe that so many people don't get the concept of perseverance in this business and how good things can happen based on creating trajectory of the same kind of efforts in the same kind of direction. And I think we all have a tendency on certain things to quit prematurely. And I think if you get that concept of it's just, show up, answer your phone, keep executing, you're going to overcome most of your competitors because they run out of gas. And everybody who works with me knows that phrase, run out of gas. Just don't run out of gas. Just keep going. And, that means having a well thought out business plan, which is, another problem people can have. But I think if you understand that 80% part, you're going to be in good stead.
So can you give me an example of maybe a recent time that you've applied that to your life or to your business where the no quit attitude maybe pushed through something that didn't look from initially that was going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I can think about the very first time in my life where I really kind of got that thing ingrained in me. And I grew up in an athletic household. My father and grandfather owned a sporting goods store. We played every sport there was. I thought I was pretty good at them, and I ended up not making a team that I expected to make. And I was like, what? And really it came down to me just not having the right attitude. I remember my dad saying, if you really want to do it, this is what it's going to take. And we worked out every morning for a long time, and I made that team the next year. And it was like, okay, not only did I make the team, but I ended up being one of the better players on the team. And it just kind of was that first kind of thing. And I was like 13 or 14 years old. It just ingrained in me that this is all about effort. And, we've made lots of mistakes. When you've been at this for 25 years, you make a lot of errors, right? You just bump into a lot of bulls, and we say, okay, let's not do that again. But, if you hadn't made the mistake, you wouldn't be able to actually make the forward progress. So, there's lots and lots of examples. Even like with Auto, with Origin. When we started Origin, we made it a requirement for everybody that joined us that they had to do their processing of business through our operations center because we knew we needed to build scale with our lenders before we could give people choice. And that was a huge turnoff for brokers that thought submitting deals was an art form. So it took us a long time to get the right people to want to work with us and buy into that concept. But once we got there and we opened it up and said, now it's your choice to, we want you to do it because you want to do it. All of a sudden the amount of people that wanted to work with us and, under different ways of doing business, really broadened. But, it took a lot of painful pressing in the first couple of years to make that happen.
Right. Well, actually, that's a great example of how to use that quote. That actually ties right into my next question, which is failure. I know that for me, I've had failures, and as an entrepreneur, as a mortgage broker. But looking back, there's always a lesson. So, can you maybe share a different failure or something that you failed at, but then looking back, the lesson that you learned in it?
Yeah, I'd say the one thing that we did early days is we probably went a little bit overboard with what we thought our operations center staff could do, what we thought our administrators could do to support us. And at one point, we actually had them interacting with clients. So the whole idea was our brokers, or what we call mortgage advisors, were focused on, referral partners and clients getting the deal in the door, getting it approved, getting the commitment letter signed, and what we call acceptance status, which, when we consider a deal to be a receivable or, likely going to fund. And then we would put that deal back on the administrators to actually follow up the client for the remaining conditions. Well, I mean, that is a very difficult part of the process of mortgage brokering to productionalize if you're trying to support a number of people, because there's just too much he said, she said. Geoff said I didn't need to give you that, and I wasn't positive about that. It was just very hard to deal with that. And what happened is it killed our productivity. All of a sudden, we couldn't get the throughput, and we came to recognize that this, while it sounded good in theory, it just wasn't very workable. I mean, it's not bad if you got one assistant to one broker, but once you start, increasing the numbers of people and the various personalities, it's almost impossible to manage. So we just made the choice that we were going to make these associates that work for us in our operations group lender-facing and supplier-facing specifically, and not be client-facing except for sort of minor things or vacation problems and things of that nature. And it really helped us turn the corner on how to do it. But I mean, it was painful because you had taken something away that you were originally going to provide to people and didn't go over that well.
Yeah, for sure. And I could see that, like, because every broker does their business differently. And then if an assistant or an underwriter is dealing with 3 or 4 or 5 different brokers and they all have a different communication style, it can create friction for the client and for your staff.
Exactly. So one of those good in theories, not so good in practice. And those tend to be the things that we make as a mistake. And then when you peel it back, what you end up realizing is that you were really just trying to create these things because they just made your life easier, or what you thought were going to make your life easier, instead of really doing things that were for the betterment of the process or for the client. And we just started to change our perspective and say, okay, what's the real enhancement here? Like whose life is better, and if it's just somebody just because they no longer have to do stuff they didn't feel like doing, that's not necessarily the only litmus test that you should put something through to decide how to go about changing the process.
Right. The client kind of is at the end of the day, it's the borrower who's got to feel that the process was smooth, and having he said, she said doesn't create a smooth process.
No, it made you look less than credible. Let's put it that way.
Because
it for long.
It's like, hey, how come do you guys not talk to each other? Because they don't understand, right? They're like, why would the broker say one thing and you say another? Are you guys not communicating? And then it creates just trust issues.
You got it.
So, and I've also noticed talking to successful mortgage brokers, they all have a system and a process, and they're willing to tweak those processes to get better results. And I know for sure that you are really high on this, using systems if you built auto. So tell me about an administrative process that you guys had that maybe wasn't working as well. You just kind of shared one with collecting docs from the clients or being client facing. Can you share a different one maybe that you wasn't working quite as well, and then you guys made an adjustment, either like an electronic adjustment or just a process adjustment, and what kind of outcome you got?
Yeah, a good one is when we first started auto and we used it internally, we had it really kind of manage our deal flow. And then when we got into the business of actually licensing the software to other parties, they would sit down with us and they go, yeah, I really like this. But, interestingly enough, I'm still going to have that filing cabinet in the corner for all my documents, and I'm still going to have this kind of thing hanging off it. And we realized, it solved part of their problem, but we really needed to have it evolve to solve most of what people needed to do in their business. So in our particular case, we hadn't put documents and condition management into auto. We still had a document server, and we thought, okay, we can show people on how to do this, get a document server and a naming hierarchy, and this is how you keep your documents. And then we thought, that's stupid. Why don't we just put it in auto? So we started a condition screen in auto as a place to deposit the actual documents that would be associated with any file. And then as we got into it, we thought, well, while we're in there, why don't we use it as a way to create dynamic client to-do lists so that we can keep our clients up to date on what's outstanding? Well, while we're there, why don't we just also have an email manager so that we can send off the documents right from there to the lender, and then we can record when we did it. So there's never that, we lost it. And it was one of those things that started with solving a small problem. And where did we end up? We ended up with a better solution in 3 or 4 different fronts just by thinking through all of the things you could do in one place. And we tended to take that attitude here, is that if it's a process that we're going to do, I wouldn't say more than once, but if it's going to be something we have to do more than 10 times, why don't we find a way to do it once the right way and have it so that we're not asking everybody else to do it 9 more times or plus. So we don't do like deal record sheets, and we don't do things that, like, why am I doing this, over and over again, the same thing. We try to make it a part of our system. And we've conveyed that through to CRM. We have everybody in our company, as all of their clients receive a client campaign, whether it be a rate hold or a live deal, and just by making sure that the commitment letter gets signed. They don't have to do anything else for it to start. So they're not having to populate a database. They're not having to push a button to say go or anything like that. It just happens. And it's not so much what you're saying, it's that you're saying something at the right time.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. Yeah, so you basically tried to solve one problem, which was document storage, and you end up solving 3 or 4 or 5 more by just going, well, wouldn't it be nice if, keep asking that question, and you come up with a pretty cool solution. So I also noticed
that's the idea is that and that's honestly, Scott, that comes from just being out there talking to people about it, because we wouldn't have. I can't say we wouldn't have thought of it, but we probably wouldn't have thought of it as quickly, and it wouldn't have as expanded if you weren't out there interacting. And I think that is a benefit that these kind of forums there should be more of them, and there should be more of this exchange and this collaborating, because there's so much stuff that we do in this business that's the same thing over and over again. And I got to tell you that they're killers on productivity when you think about it. And there's a better way. And if we all communicated better and just got on board with the idea of collaborating on some of these best decisions or best practices, then we could certainly get a lot more done and deliver a better client experience for everybody that deals with a broker.
Right, and improve our market share from, overall 30% or something that brokers get to maybe 50 or 60%. Because I'm convinced too that the collective wisdom of the brokers that are out there, especially like in the top kind of brokers, that they probably have a solution to almost every scenario and problem if there was a way to, a little bit more collaboration so that we would all get better. Because really the competition, we're not each other's competition as much as, it's in my mind anyway, it's the banks that we're competing with.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because as you were saying that, one of the things I was thinking about is that the guys that I would consider sort of in the older set, the ones that have been at it sort of the 20 plus years that probably made it because we were the first out there with a pager and said, you can call us after 5 to realtors and then built up a good client base, is a different group than the ones that the guys who've been at it a long time really built their business on a service competency, right? They were the first out to the marketplace to be able to sell to a realtor. Hey, you can call me after 4 o'clock. I've got a pager. They really built it not because they were great marketers, but they were the first to be able to say, I can provide you service outside of normal banking hours. And those guys are still around and they've tweaked their processes. Then you got this other group coming up that are young that really understand how to reach that next group of first-time buyers, the people that you want to get at the beginning of their life cycle. And I can tell you, there's a way to kind of marry the two together in terms of one conveying knowledge to the other. And then you got lightning in a bottle. I mean, it's just, I think that's really where the success of this industry will go. And when I think about, our target market for people that we want to have join our business is to the ones that want to come in and say, I want to figure out how to go from 4 deals to 8 deals to 12 deals to 15 deals and serve as many clients as I possibly can and know what I'm good at and delegate the rest. And I don't want to build all the infrastructure by myself. That's what we're trying to really do and make sure we do a good job of selection and get the younger people who've got so much to offer in terms of understanding the mindset of that upcoming buyer that the older guys just don't get. You know what I mean? Because any good business, if it's going to make it long term, has to come at it from a customer oriented focus and not from a service oriented or product focused direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. I love lightning in a bottle. I love that. That's totally true. So you take the wisdom of the guys who got the systems. Like I interviewed Rob Regan-Pollock last week, and I mean that guy's got systems dialed in. And then you take it's like a Jesse Johnson who's really good at marketing, and you can kind of combine those two things, and you really would have a killer combination.
Got it.
So another thing I've been hearing a lot about lately is the need to diversify income. And so what's your take on, and I kind of see two camps from the people I've spoke with. Some people are like, yes, you need to diversify. And then there's another camp that says, no, just stick to mortgage brokering and don't worry about that. What's your take on that? And if you guys are focusing, say you personally or Origin as a group, if you're focusing on diversifying your income, where do you think the opportunity is?
Yeah, it's funny because you use the word need, and I don't think, I think it's really want. People want to figure out ways to make more money from the same client, and again, I think that comes from a position of, how do I figure out a way to not prospect as much? Like there's a lot of people as they get older, they just don't want to hunt anymore. So they think, how do I make more money from the same people? And of course, the refinance business isn't the low-hanging fruit that it was, because the guy that you would have gone to and said, hey, listen, we did business 3 years ago. Let me get you out of your current mortgage and get into a better rate. Well, he's already got the better rate. So, what are you going to do? You're going to sell him different products. So, I'm kind of of two minds. I think people are coming at it from the perspective of it's meeting their need to not have to sell quite so hard to new clients. Secondly, the rationalization that, the bank's going to get their hooks into their to their clients, and I won't be able to get them, so I got to sell that product first. I think that's a bit of the rationale. Have you heard that from other people?
Yeah, I have for sure. And
okay.
So for you guys, is it on the insurance side? Some people say, okay, my diversification is going to be I'm going to offer MPP protection, and then someone else says, no, that's not even enough. I need to diversify into commercial loans and leasing, and I mean that some of the brokerages now have like credit cards and So at what point are you becoming more like a banker and less like a specialist when, like, I guess this is, I'm kind of still unclear in my own mind. Maybe this is why I asked this question. I'm unclear in my own mind where I fall. Some days I feel like I should just focus on brokering. Other days I'm like, man, am I missing opportunity? And so I'm hoping that if enough people give me answers to this, I'll come up with a crystal clear idea in my mind of what's going to work for me.
Sure. Because where I was going with that question I just asked you, Scott, is this notion that people do it because they think they don't, the bank will get their client. And I think that's a pretty bad sense of logic, because when I think about it, I've got a great lender in First National, let's say, for example, who's really good in a monoline, but they got 60 people in a retention team. I mean, they know how to keep the client they've already given them. Scotia, on the other hand, who does sell core banking and insurance and all those other products that I should supposedly be in, it's somebody in the branch who may or may not have called the client that we domiciled the mortgage there with, for 5 years. And that's my competitor. Geez, when you think about it, that's going to be an easier one to find way back to me than the first net with the 60 people retention team. So it's like, okay, I got to just think about the underlying logic about why I want to sell this other stuff, right? Does that make sense? Yeah,
it does. I think I use the analogy often with my clients that it's like a good golfer doesn't just think about this shot. You're always thinking about the next one too. So
exactly.
Part of your business planning needs to involve that.
Here's the thing that I think you got to think about is that a mortgage broker probably at the time the client's buying a home has a fair bit of influence to change a couple of things. One, it can affect somebody's core banking relationship, right? Because, you're taking payments on this. And two, for many first-time buyers, they're using their RSPs. So there's that stupid money that has to go back by way of automatic debit right into their RSP so they don't have any tax consequences. So those are two things you can just make part of your sales process. But nobody's really figured out a way to do that in a seamless way. And, of course, the banks, and the other lenders that provide the core, don't want to pay us for that. They'd rather do that fulfillment in their branch. So I think it's going to take somebody kind of figuring out how to do the fulfillment in an easy way and building it into a sales process for people to be able to do it. So I think it'll happen one day, but I don't think it'll happen because you're going to be depending on 15,000 mortgage brokers across Canada deciding they all want to diversify for it to be successful.
Right?
And that's the difference. So, I think it's worthwhile looking into, but I think we're a long ways away from that taking place in any sort of big way in Canada, I don't think.
So how do you balance you've got obviously a mortgage practice, busy, you guys are growing, you've got the software that you guys sell. So how do you balance that with family?
Well, I think, and I've listened to a few of the other people you've interviewed, and I think almost all of them say the same thing. I'm either, full on or I'm full off. I'm not doing this kind of thing where I'm on call. Call me anytime. Call me all the time. That sort of thing. After some period of time, you realize you can only go at 3/4 speed if you're always available. So, for me, I'm getting better about taking longer breaks, more frequent sort of mini breaks and holidays is where you can't reach me. And don't have any trouble turning off my phone once in a while or changing my voice message to say I'm unavailable. And I think it's just a matter of once you set the expectations with both your staff and your clients, and you're still doing a good job when you're available, you can do that balance. But you've got to have the discipline to turn off, I think. And if you don't, you tend to be pretty mediocre most of the time, I think. Over some period of time, at least that's what I found, is that I just couldn't do it. I needed to really catch my breath by not having to talk to somebody for a bit. You
need to recharge. So, and being unplugged sometimes is the best way to recharge for sure.
Yeah. And it's not worth it to make that extra little bit of money on the phone call you're going to get for the benefit of the actual real rest. So once you get that, then you tend to, make the choice.
I'm going to move to the rapid fire questions. You can answer these with a little shorter answers if you like. So what is the number one thing holding back most mortgage brokers from being successful?
Fear. I think they're afraid. And I think that fear, the underlying part of that is they don't really embrace or understand their whole unique selling proposition. They're too stuck in that notion of price. And what if I don't have the better price? And what if I don't have something that's kind of this tangible, explicit benefit, so they get gripped in fear, because if they're not sold themselves, it's pretty tough to sell other people.
Right. Yeah. What one habit or thing you think has made you successful?
Perseverance. And I would say, I've been in this a long time, and I've been, I don't burn anybody. I don't. So integrity, I guess, would be the second piece. But I'd say always showing up and just never running out of gas is probably the thing that kind of creeps to the front of my still there.
So I'm going to put a link to Otto and to your website on my site, but I'm going to ask, do you have an internet resource other than the obvious that you use in your business to make it more successful?
In fairness, what we do is we look at everybody. Like, as an example, we're just doing a whole thing on re-rendering how Otto appears to users. And we use Salesforce as a reference. We use Balsamic as a reference. We use some of the things that we've seen in open CRM programs as references, MailChimp. So I would say that we've come to determine that we haven't got it figured out, and let's use best practices of software and systems that are out there that hundreds of thousands of people have embraced, and figure out how to take the best parts of it and make it something that's a niche product specific to people that are in the mortgage origination business.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Just copy, or duplicate, don't innovate is what I always remind myself. Because innovation is risky and expensive, but if you're duplicating, then it's at least you have something that's proven.
Yeah, there's not a lot of new ideas out there, but there's a lot of ideas that can be executed in a different way.
Right. You just add your own flair to it. So if you could recommend one book to our listeners, what would it be?
One book. I know this one's been mentioned before because we use it a lot in the early days, and that's Michael Gerber's E-Myth Revisited. Big into, its process focus. That's one. But another one that I think is really good that a lot of people don't know about is called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. And a lot of it has to do with just focusing your energy, and it's kind of, behave like a billionaire in terms of how they use their time, which is your only real resource. So it's definitely worth a read.
So where do you think our industry's headed? Where's the opportunity?
I think the opportunity, honestly, is in consumer-facing activities. I think the influence of flanker markets, people that are referral partners, is waning, and people will probably stalk you as a supplier before they'll call you. So you better turn your energy to end users, and that doesn't mean putting your best rate online and buying their business. It means them, just know that they're looking for you, and that in everything else that they do, they're being provided choice up front. And as brokers, I think we've got to get used to the idea that we can't just say, trust me, I'm going to get you the best deal. We've got to make the choice part of it more apparent, more transparent to that consumer, and have them feel like they're part of the selection. And I think that's really, if people get that, I think we're gold in this business. But this idea that I'll take care of it, it's all done behind the scenes, I don't think that's going to fly for a consumer.
Right.
Forward.
Okay. Actually, that brings up something I just thought about. So you guys have a process where you provide 3 quotes or 3 options to borrowers.
Yeah.
So how do you guys do that, and how is that being received?
It's being received really well by consumers when we do it. It's not, it's more work for the mortgage advisor. So, sometimes I can just be expedient and say, hey, listen, I'll just do this. So, it all comes down to your own people buying into it. And the way I've sold it is, if you guys don't think people are doing shopping on you post-approval, you're kidding yourself, and they're more likely to do that if you've only given them one choice, because they don't know what else was out there that you took off the table for them. So the unique bids basically is a templated version where we allow brokers to basically line up 3 offers. So it's an invitation to treat. We're not sending it to 3 different lenders. Clients coming in, doing an application, give us a sense for what their credit is and how they earn their income and their planned down payment. And the broker, through some Outlook templates and email templates we've created, can control the currency that they put forward in front of the client and any incentive. And then it also shows the differences in how IRDs are calculated, portability things, other issues beyond the rate that they might want to make front and center to that client. And now the whole idea is that it's more advisory, and you and the client are in it together and say, what are the important factors for us to consider when we select which one of these 3 might be the best one. And that's the thinking. So it's to change the sales process. It isn't changing the application process per se.
Right. Actually, I started that a few maybe a couple of months ago. I don't know, from one of the interviews, it kind of tweaked in my mind. And so I created 3 options where I would just go through and I explain every lender has an advantage and a disadvantage. And ultimately it's up to them to decide, and it's a guided process. But I have found, especially my clients that are, 40 plus, or they really want somebody they want to look at the options, most of them. The first time buyers often they're just like whatever, but it's still a good practice, I think. And so those templates that you use, are those like your Origin, or are they part of Auto, or how do people actually access that type of thing?
Yeah, they're part of Origin. So we just we built them initially as Outlook templates, so you could just pull them up and it would just say, they go into our portal and they'd say, I'm going to line up Scotia, FirstNat, and MCAP. And it would pull up all of the criteria that I just told you about under those 3 lenders. So we just keep those up to date. And then they just, by virtue of pulling them up, they just open up as an email grid, right in Outlook as an outbound email to the client. Mm-hmm. So it's really just that people didn't have to do, like I told you before, like a deal record sheet. Oh, okay, this is how their IRD is calculated for this one, and this is how their IRD is calculated for that one. And it was already done for them, and they're just pulling it up as a template. But they're controlling the currency. They're deciding what they want to do with the rate, and if they want to do a cashback or, pay for somebody's legals or part of it or whatever. They control that part of it. We're just helping them with the ability to point out the differences, right? So, yeah, I think it's a big deal. I don't know about you, but every time I'm buying something, particularly things in travel, and I'm comparing till the cows come home, because I'm always thinking, am I getting what I think is going to be reasonable value, right? So I think it's something that we got to start thinking more about as a business.
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed for sure. If you go online, everything has like 3 options. You go to the website and it's like option A, B, and C, and they all have slightly differences, and people we want to feel like we want to make a decision. 50 options is too many, but 3 is a good number that you can wrap your head around. And so I think you're right. I think that's going to be we're in technical sales. I think that's something that Rob Regan-Pollock said to me, which I thought was true. It's a technical sales job, so we need to be able to show people the differences, and having a tool to do that is fantastic. So do you get a lot of adoption on that tool from your brokers, or is it still sort of like
I would say that we would probably be 50-50 at this point. And it's like anything, Scott, you want to do something different, you better be committed to selling it to your own internal group. Like, if you think it's hard to sell to end users, it's equally hard to sell to internal users, because people are creatures of habit and they get used to doing it a certain way. So it's all about leadership, honestly, and just keep pushing it. And I can tell you what I do know is that the people that do it on every deal, they fund what they put on the books. Like, they don't have cancellations, and they get more personal referrals from their clients. So, it's on me now to keep saying to everybody else who's not doing it, how do you want your business to look? Do you want it to look like this guy's, or do you want it to look like yours? And, people can answer that question the way they want.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, so we'll move to the last question, the DeLorean, which is, remember the movie Back to the Future?
Yep.
And so there's the DeLorean, you get in the car, travel to any time. So if we could set the time and date to your 15 years ago when you transitioned from in the bank world to the brokering world, and you could give yourself 3 pieces of advice to have a bigger, better business today, what 3 things would you tell yourself?
It's really kind of one thing that amounts to a whole bunch of other things, and that is just find out more about every client I dealt with, their assets, their interests, their connections, etc. I do a better job of staying in touch and document all their key life changes, and I keep them closer forever. I believe in now in this concept of spider web marketing. And it works based on personal bonds and connections. And if you know, there was a long time ago, a guy by the name of Harvey McKay wrote a book called Swim with the Sharks, and he had a saying that people don't care what you know about them once they know you care about them. And he had sort of the McKay 66 and built a humongous envelope business, the most boring kind of product out there, on that basis. And it just proves it. And I think that more than anything, if you're involved in somebody's purchase of a home, you're on the inside. And I don't think we, as a business, I know myself as a business person, haven't done enough to stay inside with some of those people. So that's what I would do different if I was given an opportunity to give it another shot. And it's simple, but it's got a huge ripple effect, I believe, if you do it on every deal with every client.
So find out more about every client, stay in touch better, and then keep them close forever. So the 3 things that how you'd kind of define that?
Yeah, build on connections. Don't build on the product offering. Build on the connection to the person.
Right. Okay. Well, Geoff, I really appreciate this interview today and your time. There's lots of great stuff in here. I love the idea of the 3 unique bids and the 3 quotes. I think anybody listening to this, if they're not on your system or thinking about how they can implement that, is crazy. How can people find you online?
Well, if they want to know more about Origin Mortgages in terms of what we do for mortgage advisors, originmortgages.ca. We've got some both a mortgage quiz on there for first-time buyers, self-serve quiz. We also have a mortgage assessment, and those all have videos as well as actual self-serve quizzes. So it's not all touch stuff. You can just listen. And then there's also Elise on there doing an explanation of how the 3 unique bids work. So I think any mortgage broker can just sort of spend 2 minutes and listen to that video and get a sense for what we're doing, because it's not about sending it to 3 different lenders. It's about making our clients part of the choice. For auto mortgage, you can go to automortgage.ca and have a look there. There's lots of information about what the system does. And then we also sponsor a Facebook page called Mortgage Brokers Get Serious. It goes across all networks, all parts of the country. About 350 members, and we talk about all things about brokers getting serious about building their business. So anybody who likes to be on Facebook and just get the occasional news update, you can also connect with us through that. And that's not specific to Origin or Auto. It's just really, we put some stuff in there because it's what is how we operate, but you can certainly stay connected to a whole bunch of colleagues across the country that way too.
Right. Awesome. And are you guys hiring?
Are we hiring? Yeah, we're always hiring. Yeah, as I said at the beginning, we hire for attitude and teach skills. So for the right people, our doors are always open for hiring.
Awesome. Well, if anybody listening to the show, they can get links to this at ilovemortgagebrokering.com, links to Geoff's website. They can track down Auto. Geoff, I've really appreciated this, and I hope you rock the rest of your year.
Thanks, Scott.
If you are prepared to take your mortgage business to the next level, there is only one place to go. I Love Mortgage Brokering with your host, Scott Peckford.
Hey, Broker Nation, Scott Peckford here. Have you joined our VIP club for mortgage brokers yet? If not, you're missing out. We share exclusive content not available on the web or the show. We share scripts, step-by-step guides, and other insider tips to help you save time and make you more money. I can't tell you how many times after I turn off the recorder, a guest starts sharing some awesome advice or a script or a tip, and I take the best of this and share it with my VIPs. If you want to get on the list, visit ilovemortgagebrokering.com/VIP. That's ilovemortgagebrokering.com/VIP. Oh, and one other thing. Since this is exclusively for mortgage brokers, there is a skill testing question. Good luck, and I hope you continue to rock your mortgage biz.